Coming up next on NewsDepth, we've got tips for having a pandemic-safe Thanksgiving celebration. Plus, California pup owners are putting political differences aside. We honor Ohio's bravest for Veterans Day in this week's No Ohio. And of course, we fill you in on the big presidential election results. NewsDepth is now. Talk about a nail-biter for Biden's win. Hey everybody, I'm Rick Jackson. Thank you so much for joining us. Last week's presidential election kept the nation up late, waiting as votes were counted, only to have to wait for another day, and eventually another day. Finally, on Saturday morning, Democratic contender Joe Biden was named the president-elect. He won 290 electoral votes. The popular vote also favored Biden, with him winning about 51% compared to Donald Trump's winning 48%. These numbers coming from the Associated Press. Now, we told you a few weeks back about how the Electoral College works. Those are the representatives who ultimately vote for president, with their votes based on the ballots of the voters in their states. Some states, like Ohio, have a winner-take-all policy. So even if only about 53% of the ballots here go to President Trump, which is what happened, he still gets all 18 of our electoral votes. Joe Biden got about 45% of the votes in Ohio. The rest went to third-party candidates. Now, 53 to 45 might sound like a close race, but not compared to some of the other states. President Trump has not accepted the results, by the way. He's fighting to have them changed or proven wrong. Karen Kaifa has an overview of our results.
After a weekend of celebrations, President-elect Joe Biden plans to assume a role as healer-in-chief of a nation struggling with the coronavirus pandemic and its economic consequences.
He's done it in his personal life through unimaginable tragedy, and now he's going to do it for the American people.
With many of President Trump's supporters unwilling to accept last week's results, Biden, in his victory speech Saturday night, extended a hand to those 71 million Americans who did not vote for him.
I've lost a couple times myself, but now let's give each other a chance.
Some members of the Biden-Harris team approaching the challenges of this transition like those during the one between George W. Bush and Barack Obama in 2008, when the nation was mired in the Great Recession. Meanwhile, as President Trump shows no signs of conceding and continues to make baseless accusations of electoral fraud, the Biden-Harris team and even a few Republicans are ready to move on.
I don't think we're going to see anything that's going to overturn this election, and I haven't seen any evidence of widespread. You know, this is the way our system works, whether you like it or not. It's time to get behind the winner of the race.
Thanks, Karen. Noteworthy with Biden's win is the victory of his vice presidential running mate, Kamala Harris, breaking new records in multiple ways. She is now the first female vice president-elect, the first biracial, Asian American, Black American VP-elect as well. Her mother came from India to the United States when she was just 19. Her father came from Jamaica.
And to the children of our country, regardless of your gender, our country has sent you a clear message. Dream with ambition, lead with conviction, and see yourselves in a way that others may not, simply because they've never seen it before. But know that we will applaud you every step of the way.
But like I said, there were lots of close races this time, and several are being contested. Contest means to oppose something as being wrong. Now, Trump's campaign has already attempted to sue various states, including Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Georgia, asking that their votes be recounted. The Republicans also want votes to be recounted in Wisconsin. That state flipped from supporting Trump in the 2016 election to narrowly supporting Joe Biden this go-around. Wisconsin state law allows a recount if the margin is within 1%, but the candidate has to cover the cost. Margin means the amount by which something wins or loses. As Tom Durian reports, officials there say if they have to recount, they're ready for it.
When we do a recount, all the municipal clerks and all the municipalities, we have to kind of recreate the election.
And that is no easy task. There are 72 counties across Wisconsin and 1,850 municipalities within them. The data from all those places has to be recounted.
Luckily in Wisconsin, we do have those paper ballots, so we can run those paper ballots through those tabulating machines.
Yep, that's right. Just like on election night, in counties across the state, ballots would have to be refed through machines and tabulated all over again. For Waukesha County, that means you have to have hundreds of workers, dozens of machines, and a place big enough to work in.
You were preparing for this possibility before the president even said, or his campaign even said, that we might ask for a recount.
You know, we actually reserved the Expo Center space about a month ago.
Wisconsin is no stranger to recounts. In 2016, Green Party candidate Jill Stein asked and paid $3.5 million for a recount. In the end, the candidate's standing didn't change.
And we've had a recount before, and it showed that we have a really good process.
Thanks, Tom. When and if the Wisconsin recount happens, it's expected to take about 2 weeks to complete. The election has shown that much of the nation, though, is divided on plenty of issues, many of which you wrote to us about a few weeks back. But that doesn't mean we can't be civil to one another. Now, dog owners in Fair Oaks, California, are setting a good example of putting political differences aside. One man there created a place for dog owners to gather with furry friends in mind. Melanie Wingo has that story.
You ready? Come here.
Back in 2016, at the time of the last general election, Roger Pajo got a vision for this street corner near his home.
Well, my wife and I thought it'd be kind of a good idea to do something to kind of bring everyone together, so we came up with the dog stop.
So they set out a bench at Central and Capitola Avenues, and as the hand-painted sign on reclaimed fence board advertises, the treats are free and the water's fresh at the Fair Oaks Village Dog Stop.
The fact that it has materialized into this community gathering place is lovely.
Out of this simple concept, a rather remarkable community connection took off running.
It harkens back to a time when we all used to know our neighbors.
4 years later and into another general election season.
So the political aspect is definitely checked at the door.
Right.
You won't hear dogmatic arguments from all ends of the political spectrum. Differences are cast aside at the Dog Stop.
So we call everyone Demopublicans, because really, if you think about it, there's a little bit of everybody in each of us.
Welcome respite from political rhetoric the humans appreciate as much as the dogs do the guaranteed snacks.
You totally forget what's going on in the world right now. You really do.
The only thing that's encouraged, mutual respect, and for those so inclined, photo sharing of visits that Roger prints, laminates, and posts for others to enjoy. Over the years, about 140 dogs have made their way onto the post here at the Dog Stop. Some are from the neighborhood, some are from miles around. When a visit to the Dog Stop was shared on a couple community Facebook pages, Roger soon noticed his clientele expanding.
And then all of a sudden I had people driving from Elk Grove and Rockland, pulling into my driveway, unloading their dogs and taking photos. So it was kind of neat.
And then there are regulars like dog walker Kathy Tibbetts and Smokey.
You know, we need the happy, we need the friendly, we need the stories, we need the, oh wow, that's really interesting.
Neighbors connecting over what they have in common.
You just sort of enjoy them for their love of the animals and the love of the neighborhood and who they are, and all the other noise that we deal with in life just isn't there. It's really magic.
Thanks, Melody. What a great example of a community building project, which brings me to your letters this week. We ask you to come up with your own community projects. Let's see what you have to say by opening up our inbox. Ava from Sidney Finn Elementary in Medina wrote, "My way to help the community is to collect slightly worn and outgrown winter apparel, including coats, hats, gloves, and pants. It can get very cold in my community of Northern Ohio. I would pass them along to those in need, since it can be very expensive to upgrade clothing for growing children that need new winter clothing on a regular basis." Balaji from J&G Snow School in Berea wrote, "The community project I would start is me and my friends would do babysitting. We will help everybody that has babies by watching them when their parents need help. We will donate money to the people that don't have money." Here's one from Caitlin at William Bruce Elementary in Eaton. "A community project I would like to start is an animal shelter, because a lot of animals get lost. If I end up finding them, I'm going to try to look for their owner. But if I don't find them, I will take care of the pet until I find the owner or the owner finds his or her pet. The reason I would want to start this community project is because a lot of pets get lost, and when they get lost, they don't have anyone to take care of them." Eli from Jefferson Elementary in Jefferson came up with a good idea. "My community project would be a cleanup group. I would have it as a cleanup group because it is not good to litter. It kills animals and pollutes the air. This is important. I would also do this because I want to make a statement in my little town. I want to show people that kids can make a difference. I also want a clean community. That is what I would choose if I ran a cleanup group. Addison from Barberton Middle School in Barberton wrote, I would start a money-raising project for the homeless people because they are people too and deserve a roof over their head and a job so they can make some money. Seeing homeless people breaks my heart and tells me how grateful I should be because I have a roof over my head. It should also show you how grateful you should be. Very sweet answers, everybody. I can tell that you are passionate about making your communities the best that they can be. Now, last week, we also asked you to vote in our poll about college kids being tested for COVID before going home on Thanksgiving break. Let's look at those results. 46% of you said we should do it before and after going home. Okay, you're really going to be safe. Well, whether you can get a test for Thanksgiving or not, we've got a few extra tips to keep Turkey Day pandemic safe. Lisa Ryan has those details.
Millions of Americans travel across town or across the country to gather with loved ones on Thanksgiving. But just like with everything else this year, officials are urging people to take another look at their usual plans. New guidance from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention suggests holding virtual Thanksgiving gatherings this year and limiting them to people who live with you. But if you plan on adding more than that, here are a few tips to keep you and those around you a little bit safer. Start by checking the current level of COVID infections in the area you're planning to visit. Host activities outdoors whenever possible. And when holding them inside, open up windows to let in fresh air. Continue to wear your mask when around those you don't live with. And before you dig into your holiday meal, encourage everyone to wash their hands with soap and water. Remember, you need to scrub for 20 seconds before preparing, serving, or eating food. Avoid potluck meals and ask people to bring their own food or limit contact of the plates and food by choosing one person to be the server. And finally, if you do participate in any higher risk activities, take extra precautions for the next 14 days to protect others.
Thanks, Lisa. That last tip about 14 days, that's the amount of time it can take to start showing COVID symptoms after you get infected. So best to avoid people until you know that you're in the clear. Now, the good news is that a vaccine may be here soon. Pharmaceutical company Pfizer announced early data from their coronavirus vaccine, trials showing it's more than 90% effective against the virus. That's good news. They plan to request emergency approval of the vaccine from the Food and Drug Administration later this month. In Indiana, the most vulnerable population is already getting some extra help in battling COVID. Vulnerable means in need of special care because of age or disability or some other factor. More than 1,000 Indiana National Guardsmen have been called to duty there. Rich Nye reports.
These soldiers face an invisible army on an unusual battlefield.
COVID-19 has hastened a lot of deaths in nursing facilities in this frail population.
Over 400 members of the Indiana National Guard received training Friday at Camp Atterbury.
How to protect themselves, how to protect others, and generally just how to help. How do we help this fatigued staff stop the spread of the infectious virus inside of these facilities, because this is our most vulnerable population.
This is the first wave of soldiers who will work in 133 long-term care facilities that need the most critical help.
Just more manpower. We're going to be conducting temperature checks for visitors, ensuring that we have proper protection gear for everybody. Just whatever that care facility needs, we're going to be helping with.
The soldiers will not provide resident care, but will relieve other duties so the staff can focus on care. Many of these young soldiers are training for their very first mission. Not the kind of mission any of them ever expected.
I'm an infantry, I'm a mortarman, so I was kind of expecting something more action, but this is still a good way to serve the community.
Full-time student Andrew Schuler passed his first COVID-19 test a couple days ago.
When I go to school at Ball State, all our temperatures aren't taken. We're not required to get a COVID test or anything. So I kind of feel safer doing this than going to school.
Residents at long-term care facilities account for more than half of Indiana's COVID-19 deaths.
It's crazy right now, but keeping people safe from it is a big priority right now.
Thanks, Rich. That leads us to the part of our show where we celebrate members of the military, in particular, veterans. Veterans Day is every year on November 11th. We celebrate the men and women who fought for our country. Well, the day was originally known as Armistice Day in recognition of the end of World War I, which took place November 11th of 1918. Multiple years and several wars later, the holiday was renamed to celebrate the bravery and service of all veterans. And there are quite a bunch of special vets from Ohio as well. Mary Fecto shares all about them in this week's No Ohio. Mary?
When you think about your heroes, people you admire and look up to, you might think about your parents, teachers, newscat, or maybe even a superhero from a blockbuster you saw over the summer. But in honor of Veterans Day, I'd like to introduce you to some real-life Ohio superheroes. Men and women who have risked their lives and made tremendous sacrifices for their country. Here's one hero for your consideration, Robert Madison. Originally from Cleveland, Robert was an architecture student at Howard University when he was called to serve in 1941 at the start of World War II. But as an African-American officer, Robert fought both discrimination in the U.S. military as well as our foreign enemies. He was segregated or prevented from fighting alongside his white counterparts and fought entirely with an all-black unit. But his unit successfully fought across Italy, gaining ground and liberating cities. Robert was honored with a Purple Heart after he suffered injuries during the conflict. When he returned to Cleveland, he finished school and opened the first black-owned architecture firm in Cleveland. Years later, Robert reflected on his service by saying, "We were determined to be great soldiers and win, so we could come back and say we did it. We wanted to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that we deserved to be treated as equals." But you don't need to be a soldier to be a brave veteran. Ohioan Margaret Henry served her country during World War II by working for the Red Cross. She was running a small rest center for exhausted soldiers in Luxembourg when she was pulled into the Battle of the Bulge, one of the deadliest attacks of the war. Margaret narrowly escaped the advancing German army under the cover of darkness and continued to serve until the end of the war. In 1947, Margaret was presented a Bronze Star for her selfless devotion to American soldiers. In her memoirs, Margaret wrote of the Battle of the Bulge, "How did I feel through all of this? Scared to death, naturally, but equally determined not to let the men know how frightened I really was." Since World War II, there have been many military conflicts that have called on our bravest Buckeyes. The Vietnam War spanned nearly 2 decades in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and Ohioan Thomas Nelson Moe served as an Air Force pilot. In 1968, his plane was shot down over enemy territory. After avoiding capture for 3 days, he was discovered and imprisoned by the North Vietnamese for the next 5 years. Even though he suffered kidney damage due to the harsh conditions in the prison, he refused to be released earlier than prisoners who were captured before him. He was eventually released in 1973 and has since served as Ohio's Director of Veteran Services. When he retired from the post, Governor John Kasich called him a true American hero. But there are so many more heroes throughout the Buckeye State. In fact, veterans make up 7% of Ohio's total population, so chances are you know one. And now is as good a time as any to thank them for their service.
Thanks, Mary. We here at NewsDepth definitely want to say thanks to all of our state's veterans. Your service is very much appreciated. So what does life look like after serving in the military? For many vets, it can be difficult to leave behind. For Ohioan and Navy vet Arthur Kettner, his journey from military to civilian life took him down an unexpected path. We've got his story in this week's Sketchbook. Take a look.
My artwork is based around structure. I like taking multiple elements in my artwork and repeat those forms or design elements and apply them in different ways. Some of my artwork, like my bacteria series, I'm using organic forms and I'm tumble stacking them together in this chaotic way, and they're chopped up and reassembled into ways that suggest a mechanicalness to them, but yet have an organic feel. Clay wants to go natural. So working against clay's own predisposition has been a really interesting challenge. After my service at the United States Navy, participating in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and becoming a veteran, I moved back to Ohio and I completed my bachelor's degree at Bowling Green State University in ceramics, glass, and computer art. I taught for 2 years at Sinclair Community College. And it really set me up for wanting to go to grad school, that I understood that there was more to ceramics that I wanted to know. I was accepted to Tyler School of Art at Temple University in Philadelphia. So my wife and I moved to Philadelphia so I could become a grad student. During that time, my first child was born, and I knew when I graduated that I needed to get a job. After finishing my Master's of Fine Arts degree, I started to work for industry. For an artist to work in industry is an interesting proposition. So I received a typical job like color matching at a glass enamel place. And so somebody would say, I want you to make this color. So I would use the chemicals and then we'd make a color. During that time working in the industry, I learned how to be more formulaic, how I could use scientific method to understand the materials I was working with. A lot of these places, I did work under chemical engineers, and I was a sponge. They would start talking, and I would just sit there and listen. So I really grew as a technical artist, if that makes sense, in the way that I could understand my materials better and how to apply them in more effective ways. During the past 14 years of working in industry, it's always been a challenge to make art. Family obligations, work obligations, and there's so many hours in a day. But somehow I always found time to make things. Being the inaugural artist in residence at the Rosewood Art Center is very special to me. I feel very fortunate that this opportunity had presented itself. I've been doing ceramics for around 20 years now, and I love the medium, but I want to explore some more things. I've got more ideas that don't lend themselves to ceramics. So going forward, it's going to be interesting because I have this great chance after this residency program to really evolve as an artist and really take things up to more of a sculptural level. I want to be more of a sculptor instead of just considered a clay artist.
Thanks to our friends at CET and Think TV for that really inspiring story. Now, we want to know about the current military members in your family for this week's poll. Is a member of your family in the military? Head to our online poll to vote either yes, an immediate family member, yes, someone from my extended family, or no, not right now. Then write to us, tell us about a veteran in your life and why they're special to you. For instance, my father served in the U.S. Army back in the 1950s, and an uncle of mine fought in Korea. Okay, time to hear about the amazing work that some of you have been up to. Let's reveal this week's NewsDepth A+. What do you get when you mix a little bit of aviation inspiration from the Wright brothers, Newton's laws of motion, and some 8th grade know-how? Of course, it's a drone competition. This week's NewsDepth A+ award goes to the 8th grade STEM class at Perry Middle School for learning about flight and physics, then applying their new knowledge by flying drones in their own drone competition. 8 teams from Blanche Davidson's STEM class competed against each other to complete 4 missions at the Perry Athletic Center Fieldhouse. The young aviators had to finish missions that showed off their speed through an obstacle course, photo reconnaissance search and rescue, and their ability to move objects from one place to another. The students are really enjoying this unit on drones, possibly because of the competitive spirit, but understanding the how and why the drone operates makes it even more interesting. Practice flying days, of course, are their favorite, shared Mrs. Davidson. The shape of the wings affects flight. They make air more dense underneath the wing than above, which pushes the vessel up, shared Spencer, one of the 8th grade pilots. It wasn't all competition. The students spent the first part of their year learning all about the design process, flight, and physics. They used CAD programs, that's computer-aided design, to come up with a drone that can deliver a package to its destination in the fastest time possible. They even met with a real UPS drone pilot from UPS Flight Forward Drone Delivery to learn about careers in this new industry. This week's NewsDepth A+ award goes to the 8th grade STEM class at Perry Middle School for their use of the design process, great collaborative skills, and use of technological literacy in designing, building, and flying drones. That is so cool. Okay. Now, I'm not sure Newscat can top that. Can't even come close, but let's see what she's pot up for this week's petting zoo anyway, shall we? Oh, you're grumpy. Hey, Newscat. I know. We stole your dog story earlier in the show. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to take your job away. So, what did you find? Oh, that's way better. A bald eagle being released back into the wild? You win. That's definitely perfect. I'm sorry, you're a cat. Perfect for Veterans Day. To find out how high the eagle can fly, click the Petting Zoo button on our website. Thank you, Newscat. And thanks to all of you for joining us for this week. Now, before I go, I have a reminder for the teachers in the room. Teachers, pay attention. We're about to send out this year's Newscat posters to those of you signed up for our weekly e-newsletter. There is no Rick poster, by the way. There is still time to sign up, though, for the Newscat poster. Each week, we let you know what to expect in the upcoming episode, link up learning standards with weekly stories, and share the episode's worksheets as well. You can find the form to sign up right on the NewsDepth homepage. I promise, it's there. Okay, that's it, except for me to say there are plenty of ways to stay in touch with us, and you know what they are, right? You can write to us, 1375 Euclid Avenue, Cleveland, Ohio. Our zip code's 44115. You can email us at newsdepth@ideastream.org, or you can tweet us. Our handle is @NewsDepthOhio. Thanks for joining us. I'm Rick Jackson. We'll see you right back here next week.
NewsDepth is made possible by a grant from the Martha Holden Jennings Foundation.